The financial industry will never lead with this because it makes everything too simple to sell. You don't need a financial advisor. You don't need a brokerage account with a minimum balance. You don't need a premium investing app or a strategy that requires a spreadsheet to understand. You need $10 a day and enough patience to leave it alone. That's it. That is the entire framework. And the reason most people never do it is not because they can't afford $10 a day. It's because $10 a day doesn't feel like it's doing anything. It feels like a gesture, like the financial equivalent of making your bed in a burning house. It's not. And by the end of this, the math will have said something that no amount of motivational language could have said better. You are 22 years old, and you are spending $10 a day without even noticing it. Not on anything significant, not on anything you'd defend if someone asked you to account for it. A coffee and a breakfast sandwich on the way to work. A lunch that costs slightly more than the one you could have made at home. A convenience purchase at a gas station that you didn't plan and won't remember by the weekend. The $10 doesn't leave your account in one transaction. It leaves in 3 or 4 small ones, each individually too minor to track, and collectively adding up to the one decision that will define the next 30 years of your financial life more than any other single variable. You are not reckless. You are not irresponsible. You are doing exactly what virtually everyone around you is doing, spending the small money on the small things and saving the big decisions for later, for when the income is higher, for when the timing is better, for when the number finally feels large enough to matter. Here's the truth nobody tells you. The timing will never feel right. The number will never feel large enough, and later has a cost that doesn't appear on any receipt. So you open a brokerage account for the first time at 22, not because someone told you to, because you read something that stopped you mid-scroll, and the math in it didn't let you go back to sleep easily that night. The premise is simple. $70 a week invested consistently in a broad market index fund, something that tracks the S&P 500, which has returned an average of approximately 10% annually over the long run, will grow to a number that doesn't feel real when you first calculate it. You run the calculation 3 times because the result looks like the typo. It is not a typo. It's compounding. And compounding doesn't behave the way human intuition expects because human intuition is linear and compounding is exponential. At $10 a day, you are investing $3,650 a year. Hold on to that number. You are 25. 3 years in, the account balance is not impressive yet. It sits at approximately $12,100, assuming a 10% average annual return. You look at it the way you look at a plant even watering faithfully. The growth is real. It's also invisible from one day to the next. Your friends are not talking about index funds. They're talking about a stock they heard about from someone at work, a cryptocurrency that tripled in 2 weeks, a real estate deal that someone's cousin is putting together. The noise is constant, and it is specifically calibrated to make patient, boring, consistent investing feel like the wrong approach. You leave the account alone. This is harder than it sounds. Leaving money alone when the market drops 18% in a quarter is not a passive act. It is an active decision made against a very loud instinct that says doing something is always better than doing nothing. The instinct is wrong. The data is clear. Investors who do the least during market downturns consistently outperform the investors who react. You stay in, you keep adding $10 a day. The account keeps growing. You are 30. The balance has crossed $40,000. Specifically, at a consistent 10% average annual return on $3,650 a year over 8 years, the account sits at approximately $42,000. You did not earn that $42,000. You deposited $29,200 of it across those 8 years. The remaining $12,800 is money that your money made without your involvement. You did not work for it, you did not think about it, you did not manage it or monitor it or make decisions about it. It grew because you left it in the right structure and gave it enough time to do what compounding does when you stop interfering. This is the moment most people make the first serious mistake. The balance feels large enough to use.
A down payment on a car, a vacation that's been delayed for 2 years, a home renovation that makes practical sense on paper. Every justification is reasonable in isolation. Together, they represent a category error. The belief that investment accounts are savings accounts with better returns. They are not. They are time machines. Every dollar you remove at 30 does not cost you that dollar. It costs you what that dollar would have been worth at 50. At a 10% average annual return, $1 invested at 30 becomes approximately $6.70 by the time you are 50. You are not withdrawing a dollar. You are withdrawing $6.70 and calling it a dollar. You are 35. The account balance is now approximately $78,000. The number itself is significant, but the shift you feel is not about the number. The shift is psychological. For the first 13 years of your working life, money was something that came in and went out, and the space between those two movements was called a budget. The account changed that relationship. The account is evidence in dollar amounts you can verify at any moment that money does not have to move through you and disappear. It can stay, it can accumulate, it can work in your direction while you are doing something else entirely. You begin to see spending differently, not with guilt, not with the particular anxiety of someone who has decided that enjoyment is a financial crime, but with a new unit of measurement. The $6 coffee is not $6. It is $6 today and approximately $105 in 30 years at a 10% average annual return. That is not a reason to stop buying coffee. It is a reason to know what you are actually exchanging when you do. And here is the contrarian truth that personal finance culture will never say, because the entire industry is built on the assumption that you need more information, more strategy, and more products to build wealth. You don't. The single most powerful financial decision available to an ordinary American earning an ordinary income is not which stocks to pick. It is not which advisor to hire. It is not which tax strategy to implement first. It is the decision to automate a fixed daily amount into a low-cost index fund and then functionally forget it exists. That decision, made at 22 and maintained without interruption, will outperform the majority of actively managed investment strategies over a 30-year horizon. Not because the strategy is sophisticated, because it is consistent. And consistency across time is the only edge that is available to everyone and used by almost no one. You are 40. At 35, when your income increased enough to make it painless, you raised the daily amount from $10 to $20. Not dramatically, not in a way that required restructuring your life. You redirected the raise instead of absorbing it into your lifestyle. The raise was $8,000 a year. You redirected $3,650 of it into the account, doubling your contribution, and spent the rest. The lifestyle did not change noticeably, but the account changed significantly. At 40, the account sits at approximately $170,000. You deposited a total of $83,950 across 18 years. The account contains $86,050 that you never earned, never worked for, and never had to think about. That number is larger than your annual salary. It exists because of a decision you made at 22 that felt like nothing at the time. Here is what nobody tells you, and what this story is actually about, beneath the numbers and the projections and the daily discipline. The $10 a day was never about the money. It was about the identity. Every day you invested instead of spent, you were making a small and private declaration about what kind of person you were. Not someone who is going to build something someday, a person who is building it. Those are psychologically different states, and they produce different decisions across every area of your financial life. The person who has been investing $10 a day since 22 does not make the same car purchase at 35 that the person who hasn't been investing makes. Not because of the math, because of who they have become through the practice of the habit. The account is evidence of an identity. The identity is the actual asset. You notice this most clearly when a colleague mentions a hot stock tip at lunch.
3 years ago, you would have leaned in. You would have gone home and opened a browser tab and let the story pull you somewhere impulsive. Today, you listen politely, and you feel something that is not temptation. It is recognition. You recognize the shape of the pitch, the urgency, the certainty, the implied regret of missing it. You have been immunized against it, not by discipline alone, but by 18 years of evidence sitting in your account that the boring strategy is already working. The hot tip is noise. The account is signal. You stop needing to chase the noise the moment you have enough signal to trust. You are 45. You sit across from a fee-only financial advisor for the first time. Not because you were lost, because the account has grown to a size where the architecture around it matters as much as the growth inside it. The account balance, assuming you raised contributions to $30 a day at 40 when a second income increase made it comfortable, sits at approximately $340,000. You bring the statements. The advisor reviews them and says something you didn't expect. He says most of his clients come to him at this stage having done far less with far more. He means it as a compliment. You receive it as information. He recommends two structural changes. First, maximizing your Roth IRA contributions annually, which at your current income level allows you to contribute $7,500 per year into a tax-advantaged account, where the growth and the eventual withdrawals are both tax-free. Second, reviewing your asset allocation, which at 45 should begin a gradual shift toward a blend that introduces bonds and reduces volatility as your retirement horizon shortens. You implement both. Neither change is dramatic, both changes are architectural. You are no longer just growing the account. You are building the structure around it that will protect the growth through the final 20 years before you access it. You leave the meeting and realize something. This is the first financial conversation you have ever had that did not feel like catching up. Every conversation before this one, with a bank, with a lender, with an HR representative explaining your 401k options, carried the quiet undertone of someone who was behind and trying to close a gap. This conversation felt different. It felt like a review of something that was already working, a refinement, not a rescue. That shift in the tenor of a financial conversation is not something you can manufacture. It is something you earn across years of consistent, patient, unglamorous decisions that nobody around you was watching or applauding. You earned it $10 at a time. You are 52. The account is approaching $800,000. Specifically, at $30 a day from age 40 onward, $20 a day from 35 to 40, and $10 a day from 22 to 35 at a consistent 10% average annual return across the full 30 years, the combined account value, including the Roth IRA, sits at approximately $768,000. You deposited approximately $215,000 across 3 decades of consistent contributions. The remaining $553,000 is the product of compounding, of money making money making money in a sequence that started small and quiet and unimpressive and became eventually undeniable. You tell your 24-year-old nephew about the account over dinner, not about the balance, about the beginning, about the $10 a day at 22 that felt like nothing and became something that changed the arithmetic of your entire life. He listens with the particular attention of someone who suspects they're being told something important but cannot yet feel the weight of it. He asks if it's too late to start. He's 24. You tell him the honest answer. Starting at 24 instead of 22 cost approximately $120,000 in final account value at 52 due to the lost compounding on 2 years of contributions. That is the price of 2 years of hesitation. It is not nothing. It is also not a reason not to start. He opens an account the following week. He sets the contribution to $10 a day. The number looks small on the screen. That is exactly how it is supposed to look. You think about your own 22-year-old self, sitting at a screen with $200 in a brokerage account that felt like a gesture rather than a strategy. You think about how many times in those early years you almost moved the money somewhere else, almost paused the contributions during a rough quarter, almost convinced yourself that the amount was too small to matter and that you would come back to it later when the number was larger. You didn't. Not because you were exceptional, but because you had made the decision once, automated it, and removed yourself from the equation. The automation was the strategy. The strategy was the discipline. The discipline, repeated across 30 years without drama or interruption, became the $768,000 sitting in an account that you built on $10 a day. You are 60, and you are not thinking about retirement the way you expected it to think about it. You expected it to feel like an arrival, a destination you had been traveling toward for 3 decades. It doesn't feel like that. It feels like a continuation of something that was already working. Something that had been working so quietly and for so long that stopping it feels less like relief and more like interrupting a process that still has more to give. The account at 60, including the Roth IRA and the taxable brokerage account maintained in parallel, at a 10% average annual return across 38 years of consistent and gradually increasing contributions, sits at approximately $1.75 million. You did not inherit this. You did not receive a windfall. You did not build a business, sell a company, or get lucky on a single investment that changed everything. You invested $10 a day at 22, raised that amount twice as your income allowed, and left the account alone through 4 recessions, 2 market crashes, 1 global pandemic, and 38 years of news cycles specifically designed to make patient investors feel like they were making a mistake. The account is not the point. The account is the proof. The point was a decision made at 22 that felt too small to matter. Every significant financial outcome in your life traces back to that single decision and the discipline to repeat it every day for 38 years without requiring it to be dramatic, without requiring it to be impressive, without requiring it to feel like enough. Somewhere in an apartment in a city you have never been to, a 22-year-old is sitting on the couch scrolling through their phone at 11 at night. They have $340 in their checking account and $10 in their hand that they were about to spend on a food delivery order they don't really need. They are not thinking about investing. They are thinking about being hungry and tired, and about the fact that $10 feels too small to do anything meaningful with. They are wrong. They are exactly as wrong as a person can be about something that matters this much. The $10 is not $10. It is the first day of a 38-year sequence that ends somewhere they cannot currently imagine from where they are sitting. The sequence does not require talent. It does not require a high income, a financial education, or access to information that is difficult to find. It requires the decision to start, and the discipline to continue, and the patience to let time do what time does when you stop spending the money that compounding needs to work. There will be moments over the next 38 years when the account drops, and the news is loud, and every instinct says to do something, to move the money, to pause the contributions, or to wait until things feel more certain. Things will never feel more certain. The market has never waited for certainty, and it never will. The only correct response to every one of those moments is the same response. Do nothing. Add the $10. Close the app and go back to your life. The account will recover. It always has. The people who stayed in always came out ahead of the people who did not. This is not optimism. This is the historical record of every market cycle for the last 100 years. The account will not be impressive at the end of year 1. It will not be impressive at the end of year 5. It will be undeniable at the end of year 30. And the only thing standing between you and that outcome is the decision you make tonight with the $10 in your hand. The money is small. The decision is not.